The morning began like any other. At ground-based observatories across both hemispheres, instruments were already aligned. 3 I/Atlas had long since passed perihelion. By January 23rd it was outbound, cold, dimming, slowly fading from relevance. Telescopes still tracked it, but with diminishing urgency. Most teams had moved on to other targets. Most, but not all. At a mid-latitude observatory in the southern hemisphere, one instrument recorded something unexpected. A narrow increase in high-energy particle density, not from solar wind, not from Earth's magnetosphere, and not aligned with any known cosmic ray event. At first, it looked like noise, a routine fluctuation. But within the hour, a second site logged a similar rise, then a third, and in each case the origin point, when traced back, intersected the same object, 3 I/Atlas. The anomaly was brief, a rise, a pulse, then a return to background levels. Nothing explosive, nothing bright, no flares, no visible changes to the coma. But the consistency across sites triggered review. Analysts pulled archival data, overlaid the anomalies, and saw something they hadn't expected: alignment. The particle stream wasn't radiating outward in all directions. It was shaped, focused, directional. By mid-afternoon, atmospheric modelling teams joined the conversation. A thin stream of ionized particles had entered the upper atmosphere over the Pacific. Too diffuse to be dangerous, too fast to be local. The stream faded quickly, but its structure was unnatural, linear, like a thread, not a cloud. Quiet inquiries began circulating between institutions. Nothing formal, not yet. But those who had seen the data felt the same discomfort. It wasn't just the stream itself, it was the angle, the vector from which it came. A line traced backward from the Pacific, through the upper atmosphere, past Earth's orbit, and straight through the ecliptic, directly intersecting the outbound path of 3 I/Atlas. There was no precedent. Comets emit gas and dust. Their jets flare randomly, shaped by solar heating, surface irregularities, and rotational exposure. But this wasn't random. It didn't stutter. It didn't wobble. It aimed. Astrophysical models were reopened. Could a fragment from the object have broken off, vented and accelerated debris on a coincidental path toward Earth? Could solar wind pressure, interacting with carbon-rich particles, have aligned them like a magnetic lens? Every explanation raised more questions than it answered, and as the data was reviewed again, slower this time, more carefully, one more detail emerged. The emission had not begun gradually. There was no warming curve, no prelude. It had switched on. The particle flux started within a 6-second window, clean, sharp, and sudden, not like sublimation, more like ignition, and after 23 minutes it stopped, just as suddenly as it began. A single sustained emission, narrow in direction, brief in duration, and perfectly aligned with Earth's orbital corridor. No alert was issued. There was no cause for public concern. The stream posed no physical threat. It dissipated in the atmosphere, far above commercial flight paths, far below satellite trajectories, but the event was recorded, logged, quietly added to a growing file of behaviours that do not fit. Because the question now wasn't what 3 I/Atlas was doing, but why it had waited until now, until this quiet morning in January, when nothing else in the sky had changed, except one thing. It had turned, and then it had pointed, and then, for the first time since its arrival, it aimed. By the time the initial particle stream had been confirmed, attention had already shifted back to the source. 3 I/Atlas, an object once described as quiet, fading and inert, was suddenly relevant again. Most comets lose their voice after perihelion. The sun does its work, and whatever heat-driven activity remains begins to fade with distance. What was left usually were dying jets, thinning tails, and a core cooling into silence, but not this time. The jet had not emerged as part of a final gasp. It had not staggered into visibility through a sequence of decaying bursts. It had appeared whole, fully formed, and far too clean. Initial visual data from ground-based observatories caught only part of the picture. Faint brightening along the projected path, no coma expansion, no fragmentation flare. But as infrared and ultraviolet instruments recalibrated and focused, something sharper came into view. The emission was narrow, too narrow. It did not fan out like typical cometary outgassing. It held its shape over distance, maintaining column integrity far longer than any known dust or ion plume should. What they were seeing wasn't venting. It was propulsion. Even the term jet felt inadequate. In comet physics, jets are chaotic. They vary based on surface irregularities, higher thermal pressure, and rotational exposure. They come and go. They are wild, organic, fractal. But the structure of this one violated that pattern. It was linear, stable. It retained coherence over kilometers, and its core, denser than expected. The center of the stream showed higher particle mass concentration than the edges, almost as if it had been shaped. No known process inside a natural object, icy, rocky or otherwise, could produce a jet like this. Not without external shaping forces, not without some kind of nozzle, some kind of channel, some kind of intentional confinement. Simulations were run. Could a fracture in the outer crust create a vent this focused? Could a small subsurface pressure pocket burst through a narrow gap and remain stable over time? The math failed quickly. For the jet to hold shape under that model, the source vent would need to be nearly cylindrical. The object would have to maintain perfect rotational alignment throughout the emission. The expelled material would need to resist solar wind diffusion with almost zero turbulence. In short, it was impossible. Yet the data remained. A steady stream, a confined channel, and a duration measured not in milliseconds but in minutes. Nearly 23 of them, long enough for the object to rotate out of alignment if it were tumbling. But it didn't. The source point held steady, not rotating, not pulsing, fixed, and the direction. It didn't scatter into space like a flare. It was pointed, not toward deep space, not randomly, toward the orbital corridor of Earth. There was no visible thrust recoil, no spin wobble, no structural shedding. Which meant if the jet was the result of internal pressure, it had been controlled. If it was the result of stored heat, it had been managed. And if it was natural, then natural needed to be redefined. Because comets don't do this. Not after perihelion, not this far out, and certainly not with that kind of precision. For decades, science has modelled comet behaviour as a set of complex but explainable interactions, heat, pressure, and mass loss. But this wasn't just outgassing, it was direction, a transfer of momentum that felt purposeful. And though no one was using the word intelligent out loud, the questions were starting to lean that way. If the jet wasn't chaotic, if it wasn't reactive, then maybe it wasn't a jet at all. Maybe it was a message, or worse, maybe it was an engine. For several hours after the jet emission ceased, observatories did what observatories always do in uncertain moments. They waited. The skies remained clear. No further particle bursts, no visible flare, no second event, just data. But as orbital modelers began feeding the new vector stream into their simulations, something unsettling emerged. The jet, while brief, had not been passive. It hadn't just expelled material. It had shifted the object. Trajectory updates came in slowly at first, just a fractional drift from the projected outbound path. But as more data points were integrated, from spectrometers, optical tracking, and deep space monitoring relays, it became clear that this was no ordinary perturbation. 3I/Atlas was no longer coasting. It was moving. The new trajectory was subtle, barely perceptible without high-resolution measurements, but what defined it wasn't the magnitude. It was the alignment. Because the course correction didn't follow any natural curve away from the sun or along the solar wind path. It pointed through a very specific slice of space, and that slice, projected days or weeks forward, intersected with Earth's orbital corridor. The word collision never appeared in the early models. The vector wasn't direct. It wasn't steep enough for impact, but it didn't need to be. The Earth wasn't the target. The space Earth would occupy was. And that distinction changed everything. Because typical cometary jets, even powerful ones, alter trajectories randomly. They shift an object's path outward, maybe slightly laterally, depending on where the vent opens. But 3I/Atlas didn't drift outward. It adjusted inward and forward, closer to the plane of Earth's motion around the sun. The shift was not only precise, it was timed. The jet fired when 3I/Atlas's position relative to Earth would guarantee that the adjustment would place it ahead of Earth's path, not behind, not perpendicular, but ahead. A location in space Earth was moving toward. Orbital analysts at 3 independent institutions confirmed the trend. Not impact, not threat, but alignment. As if the object had gently nudged itself into a future intersection point. The probabilities were low for anything accidental, too clean, too smooth, and once again, too quiet. There was no explosive outburst, no tumbling aftermath, no visible change in structure or spin, just the emission and then the correction. And through all of this, one truth held: the jet had not called attention to itself. There was no bright flare, no radio signature, and no electromagnetic turbulence large enough to trip automated alerts. The change had only been detected because humans were still watching, still tracking, still running the numbers by hand. The silence of the vector, its lack of accompanying noise, was perhaps the most unnatural thing of all. In physics, changes in momentum usually come with echoes: heat, radiation, shock waves. But 3I/Atlas remained cold, still, composed, as if the maneuver had been intentional, as if the object understood the path it was on. Of course, no one would say that officially. The models were updated, the numbers published, but the language stayed cautious. Non-gravitational acceleration, localized outgassing event, directional deviation within expected margins. But off-record, the conversation shifted tone. Because if the jet wasn't accidental, if the trajectory was now altered, and if the path pointed forward, through the orbital plane of Earth, then what happened on January 23rd wasn't random. It wasn't even reaction. It was navigation. Once the vector deviation had been confirmed, attention returned to the jet itself. For all its precision, its silence, and its strangely directional nature, one fundamental question remained. What exactly had it released? Initial detection focused on motion, on the way the jet altered the trajectory of 3I/Atlas. But as particle observatories and heliospheric monitors reprocessed their raw data, composition began to take center stage. Because this wasn't just an act of movement, it was a transfer of something, mass, energy, or both. The first clues came from low Earth orbit. 2 ionospheric sensors, originally calibrated to detect solar proton bursts, flagged a narrow band influx of high-velocity ions. The particles arrived too fast to be trapped by Earth's magnetic field, too dense to be background noise, and too directed to come from solar activity. Tracing the event back through magnetospheric models pointed to a single conclusion. The stream originated with 3I/Atlas. But it wasn't just speed that stood out. It was the composition. Unlike solar emissions, which are typically dominated by protons and helium nuclei, this stream carried heavier ions, carbon, oxygen, and in some measurements, trace signatures of sulfur and nitrogen. None of these were anomalous by themselves. Comets often eject such materials as their ices sublimate, but the ratios were wrong. There was almost no hydrogen. That finding, though buried in the preliminary reports, immediately raised concern among comet scientists. Hydrogen is the most abundant element in cometary jets, carried outward in the dissociation of water ice. If this had been typical outgassing, an energetic release of sublimated volatiles, hydrogen would have dominated the readings. But here, it was nearly absent. The water signature was missing. Instead, the jet contained carbon dioxide ions in unexpectedly high concentrations, alongside fully ionized oxygen and carbon atoms, materials that would require either extreme solar exposure or internal excitation to reach these energy states. And yet, 3I/Atlas was no longer near the sun. It was outbound, cooling. The thermal input necessary to produce these ions didn't seem to exist, which led to a more uncomfortable possibility. What if the jet wasn't the product of passive heating at all? What if it wasn't the result of surface ice being vaporized, but something else, something mechanical or managed? Some researchers propose stored energy as a source. If 3I/Atlas had absorbed solar radiation near perihelion and retained that energy internally, perhaps in deep caverns or high-density layers, then a delayed release could account for the emission. But this raised a new problem: efficiency. To produce the observed jet structure, with its density, speed, and directionality, the energy input would need to be delivered not just intensely, but precisely. The timing, orientation, and duration would all have to be controlled. That's not how natural outgassing works. It doesn't aim. Other proposals suggested chemical processes unknown in our solar system. Reactions between exotic ices, or structural collapse within the core forcing internal gases through narrow fractured channels, but those events leave signs, visible changes, rotational instability, tumbling, none of which had been observed, and then there was the final anomaly, the magnetic profile. One deep space probe, partially aligned with the vector path of the jet, recorded a sudden localized distortion in the interplanetary magnetic field. The disturbance was narrow, spatially constrained, and short-lived. But it wasn't noise, it was organized, coherent, almost like a wave. So now the question was no longer just what the jet contained, but how it was being released. Because natural jets don't manipulate magnetic fields, and they don't carry particles at this velocity, in this configuration, from this angle, at this time. And if this wasn't natural, then someone or something chose it. By now, the observational data had outpaced the models. A directional jet, a shift in trajectory, a focused emission with a composition that defied traditional explanations. On their own, each anomaly might have been explained. Icy caverns collapsing, a coincidence of orientation, rare chemistry from an unfamiliar birthplace. But together the picture was changing. What had been a series of isolated irregularities was beginning to look like a pattern. Researchers are trained to resist that impulse, to guard against it. Pattern recognition is useful, but it can also mislead. The mind tries to connect dots even when the data resists connection. So even as new observations came in, many held the line. It's a coincidence, they said. An outlier, something unusual. Yes, but not unprecedented. Still, the language began to shift. At first, internal memos referred to non-gravitational acceleration, a term that comfortably framed the behavior of 3I/Atlas within cometary physics. But then came a revision. Non-random deviation. Subtle, but different. It acknowledged intent without declaring it. It replaced passive drift with directional change. And from there, the tone began to slide. The phrase, active behavior, appeared in an interagency summary circulated between deep space tracking centers. Not explosive behavior, not dynamic venting, just active, as if the object was doing something, on purpose. But intent is not something telescopes can measure. They can log particle velocities, electromagnetic signatures, and heat distribution. They can trace trajectory curves and compare them to known models, but none of these measurements explain why, and that's where the discomfort grew. The alignment of the jet vector with Earth's orbital corridor wasn't just geometrically curious, it was temporally precise. The emission had occurred at the only moment when a minor adjustment would result in a future corridor crossing. Had it fired earlier, the course would have overshot. Later, and the shift would have come too late to intersect. It was a narrow window, one that 3I/Atlas didn't just stumble through, but met exactly. Some tried to attribute this to solar pressure, but the calculations failed. The timing of the jet did not correspond to any meaningful change in solar flux. There was no flare, no CME, no localized increase in radiation that could have triggered delayed outgassing. If the object had stored energy near perihelion, it had released it only after achieving the optimal alignment. Others pointed to internal processes, latent heating, pressure buildup, structural stress. But again, those processes don't align with celestial mechanics. They don't time themselves to match the motion of a planet millions of kilometers away. And yet, that's exactly what happened. Earth's motion is predictable. Its future location in the ecliptic plane is knowable, measurable, and constant. For 3I/Atlas to shift into a corridor that Earth will pass through isn't impossible. But for that shift to occur with a 23-minute emission, precisely at the point where the required delta matched the object's orientation, that's not just rare, that's surgical. So now, quietly, the question emerges. Are we watching a sequence of unlikely natural events, stacked in just the right order, with just the right timing, to mimic intention, or are we seeing something that actually is intentional? In meetings, scientists still avoid the word. In papers, it's replaced by unknown mechanism or unclassified dynamics. But off the record, some are starting to speak more freely. Not about aliens, not about messages, just one simple, unnerving idea. What if 3I/Atlas isn't just a visitor? What if it's a vehicle?